This is going to be pretty emotional, I suspect, for both of us. You've First thing I've got to acknowledge is we hear the stunning and brave thing a lot in circumstances where it shouldn't be used, let's be frank. But this is genuinely a bit of a stunning and brave thing that you're kind of doing. So first thing I want to do is just thank you, not just for coming on, but we're going to discuss something that's deeply personal and really emotional. So thank you for opening up. It's kind of a big deal.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's run it from the top. Tell me about Henry White.
Henry is our third baby, and he was born with big chubby cheeks and brown curly hair, and he had the biggest hands. Henry was stillborn at nearly 36 weeks in September 2022, so it's coming up to his second birthday.
Okay. All right. So what did you know about stillbirth before Henry was born?
To be honest with you, I didn't know anything about stillbirth. Probably for a number of reasons. Stillbirth is hard to talk about, so it's not something society generally talks about all the time. And also, people don't like to talk about things like stillbirth to a pregnant woman.
No.
For fear of, scaring her or, causing her anxiety and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think another part of it is people just don't, it is so unfathomable and shocking. No one can understand why little babies die for nothing. So it's a mixture of all things, just, lack of awareness. It's a bit of a taboo subject. No one likes to talk about it. But the thing is, when things like that aren't talked about or discussed, or at least put out there in the ether, there's nothing that can be learned. Things like ways on reducing stillbirth and just having all the information that you can. You don't have to think about it all the time, but you really do need to know that it is a real thing and it's non-discriminative. It happens to healthy people and healthy babies.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, mate, there's so much in that. Because really, my eldest daughter and I, she's across in the UK right now. She loves boneyards, so we love going to the pioneer cemeteries and reading and we did I don't know if you've ever done the Shadows tour, where they kind of they have people acting it out.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard, yeah.
Shadows of the Past, absolutely wonderful. Actually, I shamelessly plug it because I think it's so good. But when you're looking through, you're seeing these Victorian and Edwardian times, that it was just so common because, before modern medicine, it's not so much as we didn't know. We'd kind of forgotten. I think that what happened with modern medicine is we just immediately started to associate pregnancy with birth. Back in the day, pregnancy was a time of great joy, but it was also like, how's this going to turn out? Because you had a lot of women die in childbirth.
Yeah.
And so not just the stillbirths, lots of women died in childbirth. In fact, I was talking to the doctor, Kate would have died. Even because I was talking to the doctor. He said, look, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, she would have been at risk. And that's in our lifetime. She would have been at risk. So definitely 100% 70 years ago, which really isn't all that long. That's only 3 generations ago. That's like our grandparents' time.
Yeah.
She'd have died, what 100%. And so you see that when you're going through all the graveyards and stuff like that, you see all these young women and, buried with their kids, and you see all these, stillborn kids, really high amounts of stillborn kids there. And you're totally right though, because I think, and I'd really like your take on this, you can't discuss these issues without getting into the metaphysical side of things, right? So I think part of the fact that we're kind of really a materialist atheist society we find it difficult to talk about death because it's like you said, it's just so weird. It doesn't really fit into the paradigm. We don't know
Yeah.
how to handle it as a society because we don't have the first. We kind of like, oh well, we don't need to worry about that. I mean, science is taking care of it. And second, it's like, oh, you don't even really need the rituals. You don't need the community support. You don't need all those kind of things. Like, what's your take
Yeah.
on that?
Well, I think that our society just doesn't do well with it. We don't talk about death. We just bury our heads in the sand. And I'm not sure why that happens, because death is a part of our everyday life, really. It comes to us all. None of us can run away from it.
Mm,
Um, I just think that, death being that weird subject to start with, then you add in a baby or a child that should have a whole long life. People just don't know. They can't work it out in their brain. If you're a parent and you have a child, you don't even want to go there. And I understand that. Um, it's just one of those things that it is way too hard to talk about, to try and understand. So it's just easier just to completely,
yep, block it out. And
yeah,
that,
block it out, think positive, and just hope to hell it doesn't happen.
like, there is the injustice aspect of it too. Like, even for like, as you know, I'm a Catholic, and that is one of those times where you kind of like you sit there and go, well, that can be faith shaking, that kind of thing. Like and when we talk about faith shaking, like that means like changing your worldview, the image of
Hmm,
yourself and the world that you live in. Like that's
100%.
that's
Yeah.
deep. That's
Yeah. Oh,
that's
absolutely.
you start asking yourself, do we really live in a just world? Is it really is it really, there's these kind of things when these tragedies happen to you.
I agree. Um, every part of you changes as a person when you lose your child. It doesn't matter what age. Um, it's like, that you're inside your house and there's an explosion in the middle of the house, and every single part of the house, everything in it is touched by the explosion and the debris. Nothing is left untouched or unchanged. And essentially, when that moment happens, you die yourself and you emerge as a new person. I am no longer the Marina that was 2 years ago, and I
Yeah.
never will be. And it's just a constant take it day by day kind of thing, where I try and work out who I am now
Yeah.
after the death of my baby.
Okay. So look, can we dive into that? Like, and obviously, if there's a place you don't want to go, just tell me, okay? Well,
Yeah,
we'll get edited out, all that kind of stuff. We just go, Matt, I don't want to talk about it. But
yeah.
like, what has it taught you? Like, what did it teach you about yourself? How did it change your view of yourself, of the world, did it teach you anything positive? Like, did anything good come out of this at all? Or even if it was just a perspective?
Henry has given me some really beautiful gifts from his passing, which I'll get to in a minute. But uh, so, as I mentioned before, Henry is our third pickaninny, and the pregnancy with Henry was uneventful. It was just like Clancy and Banjo's pregnancy. If you put them on top of each other, they'd all align. No difference at all. The only difference is around 34 weeks, I got very sick with a really bad cold, probably the worst cold that I'd ever had. And I just knew that I needed to contact, um, some health professionals to, just to say, I think I need to be seen. I'm
Mm.
really, really sick and I've never been sick before. Long story short, I got sicker and sicker, and by nearly 36 weeks, I went into spontaneous labour. And by the time we got to the hospital that day, there was no heartbeat. So Henry was born by C-section, and later on they found a bacteria within the placenta that was called Haemophilus influenza type B, and that had been found in the placenta in the cord, and made Henry and myself very, very sick. And his little body just wasn't strong enough to cope with that. So he passed away. So yeah, as a result of Henry's birth, we have appointed solicitors, and they are investigating whether or not the cause of Henry's passing is a result of negligence.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's pretty much all I can say about that.
Yeah.
What did it teach me?
Yeah.
I think Henry gave me the gift of not sweating the small stuff, to live and to love as hard as I can, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. He really has shown me how to just put my whole focus into my family and nothing else in the world, because really at the end of the day, no one else in the world really matters other than my children and my husband. So his gift to me was to just take it all in, savor every moment, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and that's the way that I try to live my life. And Henry gave me that gift. Because
Wow.
sometimes I think, it's easy for us to take for granted the things that we always think that are going to be there.
You're right. 100%. Like, you do get that feeling that the way things are now are the way things that are forever going to be. And to get those reminders that, hey, like, this is kind of fleeting,
Yeah,
carpe
little things
diem,
like,
memento mori, all those sort of
yeah,
things.
little things like you would know this from when your little ones were really little. You're strapped for sleep and you're really tired, and you just like that extra 5 minutes of sleep, but every single night they'll crawl into your bed, and you'll get, about a centimetre on the edge of the bed while they've got the whole other side. And, pre-Henry, I'd be like, oh, gosh, you've got a bed. But now it's like, I just love it because it'll end one day and it won't be there. Little things like that.
Yeah.
Savor every moment.
Wow. And that's honestly, it's small, but it's huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, yeah, actually, I kind of like, because viewers won't know, but we're former colleagues. You're in the job, and very good policewoman too, incidentally.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure your back still aches from carrying me. But yeah, I got a bit of that from the job. Actually, I remember I went to this traffic accident where this lady, and it was a fatal, this lady, and like she'd been talking on the phone and all that kind of stuff. And we even knew, we kind of like it would have been recorded, or something happened, or someone recounted the conversation to me. And so she's
Yeah.
driving to work, okay, she's focusing, she's like got a big day, and she's like talking, she's all this kind of stuff. Goes through a green light, a person didn't see the red light on the other side. Long story short, and she genuinely would not have known what hit her. Like, no kidding. Like, there wasn't even a screen. So it's just like
Awful.
bang. Like, so the person's on the other end of the phone because she's sitting there talking on the phone, right? And they've just heard this crunch. That's it, like all over. And so, like, we went there and we did our thing, and talking to the relatives and stuff afterwards, which is, the blood and guts side of thing is nasty, but I genuinely think that talking to the relatives is worse. So one second she was there, and the next second she just wasn't. And I got to say, like, it was a terrible thing. But like out of that woman's, and it wasn't like she didn't make that sacrifice for me, but like, I got an understanding out of that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm not saying it validates her death or anything or makes it worthwhile. It's kind of a big price to pay for like one idiot's perspective.
Yeah.
But it's like, some good kind of came out of it. And I think it's not just, I don't think we're deluding ourselves when that happens, like, I mean, you can get this good out of that. And the fact that you have gained out of this, like, don't get me wrong, obviously, wish things were different, but getting that unique, getting that understanding, it's like, no, man, like, and like you said, it's burned into your soul. It's like
Oh, for sure.
every second counts. Every
Yeah.
second counts. But all right, look, if we can get back onto the like, so how common, if we can talk about the subject now, uh,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, I'm going to weave these things together, okay? But how
Yep.
common is stillbirth in Australia?
So in Australia, 6 babies a day die from stillbirth. Six
Wow.
babies. So that's over 2,000 families a year. And alarmingly, in the last 30 years, that number has not um, dropped at all.
Yeah.
Until just very recently, when we talk about the Stillbirth Foundation, just recently, I'm talking within a matter of months, bar the last 30 years, they have noticed a reduction from, research and all that sort of stuff. So, but that is the current rate. 6 babies every single day will die due to stillbirth. And 20% of those over 2,000 babies a year, 20% of those are preventable.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. I mean, wow.
Mm.
Okay,
And
how then? Like, okay.
yeah, well, so things like, stopping smoking, stopping drinking alcohol, monitoring your baby's movements. And most mums would know that about monitoring the baby's movements. If you notice a decrease in your baby's movements, that should be a red flag. Go straight to your OB or the hospital to get that checked out. What a lot of people don't know is increased movements can also be something to tell you that something's wrong with bub and you need to get that checked out. Regular checkups with growth measurements and from 28 weeks sleeping on your side. All those things can really reduce the rate of stillbirth.
Wow.
So you remember how I said that, 6 babies a day, over 2,000 families a year are experiencing this, and that 20% of those deaths are preventable.
Yeah.
Of the 20% preventable deaths, half of them, 50%, are due to substandard care. So I'm talking, yeah, massive, hey? So I'm talking about, when a mother or father are raising concerns about their intuition, their instincts, they feel like something's wrong, and a lot of the time being fobbed off. Our health system is just in a state of mess at the moment.
Yep.
They are so stretched, they are so busy that they just have such a hard time with looking after everyone, you know what I mean? So what might be a minimal concern or something that doesn't seem like something very big is actually quite big and should be looked at. Basically, anytime a mum, whether it's a first time mum or a mum that's had 4 or more babies, has a concern, they should be not taken lightly and they should be physically seen. And that that is the current climate of
Yeah.
the maternity space at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we can't go into that too much because I understand
Mm.
so what's going on there. But like, just to make an observation, and we both understand this from policing, it's the kind of nature of systems. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, stuff that we'd go to that was like, your house was broken into. Me. Like, you know what I mean? This is my fourth today. I kind of like,
Yeah, complacency, right? Because
yeah,
we're just
like
seeing it every single day, but to the person, it
it's a,
is,
it's the big deal. Like,
it's a big thing. It's invasive. It's, it's happening to their house and their things and their belonging, and people have been in their space. But, quite often, I mean, if you've been doing 20 years of going to Bergs and taking reports for that, it becomes, I don't know what the word is, like normal.
routine. Yeah,
Yes, routine. But when
routine.
you're talking about babies' lives, you just gotta,
You can't do that. Yeah, that's it.
you can't fob them off. Mum always knows it's true.
Yeah,
There is nothing like the intuition of a mother.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's it too. But like you get that, you do get that burnout. Like I kind of like, one of the things where I knew that I had to get out of the job was, someone come to the front counter, they reported an assault, and it was like, and they were really upset. Like it was fair enough too. They got smacked in the head. Like, it was kind of like one of those things. And like, it was painful. And I was going through it. Like, don't get me wrong, Marley, like I was being polite, professional. Sergeant Maloney was there, notebook out, boom, doing everything that he's got to do. And I did everything. Like I ticked all the boxes, went through, the processes and policy and procedure, doing it for a long time. But I felt nothing, and I could see that this person was really, really upset. And it really, again, it changed their worldview. Because, this person lived in this chap lived in was kind of upper middle class and thought he lived in a world that was basically violence free. Like that stuff happens on TV. You know what I mean? Like, but again, like we live in that's not, I mean, we snigger, but it's like, that's because he lived in the protective bubble that we created, right?
And isn't that nice? Yeah.
Yeah. And like all of a sudden, like, reality came crashing. But kind of like, like we're kind of laughing, but it kind of, it's what cops do. Like we don't think it's actually funny. It's just the irony of the circumstance. But the fact that I felt nothing, I was just like, that's not healthy.
No.
You've just been dealing with real human suffering here, and not just angst. Although that was part of it, like, this guy got a smack in the head, like he got, those kind of stuff. And I suppose it's that again, like it goes back to what you said at the beginning, really. It's like you get this intrusion of it's like we forget that we're going to die. Like that's not the way we live. That's not the way we experience things every day. And all of a sudden it's like, on comes the guy and the
Yeah.
hey, I'm here. I never went anywhere. Like, getting that reminder in it. And it's just like it can be so shocking. We've already discussed the psychological effects there. I think we've covered off on that. Mind you, I'd be happy to dig deeper if you've got any further else. But like, did it give you, like, I'd imagine that it have effects on family? Like, was there any PTSD issues?
Yeah.
Was there any,
Yeah.
can we kind of like go into that?
Me personally, what I experienced, which has rolled on to affecting my family, and I have never had any kind of problems in my life, mental health issues wise.
Mhm.
But from the death of Henry, depression, anxiety, social anxiety, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame.
Guilt.
Obviously, PTSD plays an integral role in being a bereaved parent. Suicidal thoughts. And what I can say at the moment today, while I'm speaking to you, I am not in that place. I have been in that place, very soon after Henry was born, and it's a constant thing that has to be worked on. So all of those things that I said, that's a roll-on effect to my poor little family. My husband has a wife who is not the same anymore, and my children don't understand why, you know, there is this sadness about me where I used to be very happy
Yeah.
and everything was, rainbows and sparkles pretty much. I love to be very positive in my life, and that affects them. Those are, that's just some of the stuff that happened after losing Henry. And as you know, I've been in the coppers for, oh, I
20?
think I'm coming up to 17 years now.
50, yeah, at least 15. Yeah. I thought around 20. Yeah, 15, 15, 20.
No,
17.
two,
Yeah.
2007. Anyway,
Anyway,
um, I rolled through that job and things didn't really affect me, but this was just way too personal and it got me. It just got me,
yeah.
knocked me down. So yeah,
And I
it's a,
think part of that too is like, although like it's not your fault, like this is something that's outside of your hand. It's just one of these things. But of course, being people who, and it's every human being has this. I'm not suggesting this is just the coppers, but like coppers have a real duty mindset. Like it's kind of who we are. So we take on that responsibility. So the first question you're going to ask yourself is like, what could have I done? Like, and that's going to lead to guilt. Like
oh,
you're going to be sitting there going, blaming yourself, even though it's not you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, there's nothing you can do.
yeah,
But you'd be
that's
going
daily.
over that in your head, I'd imagine, time and time and time and time again, going, if I had have, could
Yeah,
have, would have, should have, the guilt.
yeah,
Oh my
but
God.
yeah, the guilt. There's lots of triggers in my life now,
Yeah.
where that I used to have no issues with before. Things like seeing newborn babies,
Awesome.
or little boys that are around the same age as Henry. It just, I've been given tools by the people that I speak to help myself cope with that. And I am still struggling with that. It just hurts me deeply. It is just a pain that I can't explain. So, what happens is I want to protect myself and I'll stay in this bubble big or else, there's not a lot of leaving my home because I can control everything that happens at home. And I'm not running into things that are going to trigger me,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I live with a trauma brain now and it's just going to take time. And you yourself, just by chance, actually saw firsthand
Yeah. I
um,
remember.
what PTSD is like for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
I
remember
remember.
I was down in Cairns for an appointment and forgot to bring Banjo's change of clothes. And he had an accident, and we still needed to do the things that we needed to do for doctor's appointments. And it forced me to walk into Cairns Central. And oh my God, the things that happen to me when I'm in that situation at the moment is just, and it's only since Henry died, just the PTSD side of things, the dialogue that's going inside my head and the absolute anxiety that I feel being in those types of situations, crowds and all that sort of stuff is debilitating. So I think you found me just standing there near that little merry-go-round that
Yeah.
Banjo was on, and I was just frozen, Maloney. I couldn't
I know. I saw
move.
it. I saw it.
I,
I thought, whoa.
I, yeah, I needed clothes for my baby, but I couldn't move. And thank you so much for taking me into Kmart and helping me buy a pair of shorts so we could get Banjo dressed, and then I just got out of there. But yeah, that's one of the many um, PTSD related things that I now live with because of the death of my son.
Yeah. Well,
And
first,
I don't know what would happen if you went there. That was just by chance, and I hadn't seen you for years.
well, I think it was more than by chance. But anyway, that's what friends do, mate. Don't worry about it. So look, if you wouldn't mind going in, and again, this is getting pretty D&M, but like, if you wouldn't mind describing the kind of postpartum, so after the birth experience.
Yeah. So basically, when you have your baby and it is a stillbirth, they take your baby away from you, and your body still goes through the postpartum. process. Okay, so your milk still comes in, and you still have, obviously this tremendous sadness because you've just heard that your baby's died, but you also have the baby blues because of all the hormonal changes when you actually give birth to your baby.
Mm.
One thing that I didn't even realize when we got home is that, for the first 3 months, I still got up to feed a baby at, 3 o'clock in the morning for the first 3 months. And how, it didn't matter how much I would tell myself my baby's not here. My body didn't know that. Mama didn't know that. She's still getting up trying to take care of her baby wasn't there. Your arms actually ache. It, if you could imagine holding a baby, my arms ached for at least the first 3 to 4 months. So all of that doesn't change, and also had a C-section. So with all my other babies that I had a C-section for, stop it.
Yeah.
You had the distraction of looking after a little baby, and there just wasn't the distraction there, So
Yeah.
it was every day, being in pain, and just the unbelievable amount of grief. And it was the worst. It was the worst experience that I could, probably ever have in my lifetime. I don't think there's any topping that. But yeah, your body is the last one to know that the baby is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That actually makes sense. It really does.
it just, and then all the processes that follow, like you'll get a death certificate before you get a birth certificate, and
Ouch.
you're only allowed, in the modern day now, they have things like cuddle cots, where you have a cot next to your bed, and there's a machine that hooks up to it, and it cools the cot, and it allows parents the time to hold your baby for a number of days, and say your goodbyes and all that sort of stuff. Whereas, mothers 40, 50 years ago, I still hear stories about, a stillborn baby being taken away from the mum before they even sighted the baby, and just discarded. And these mums, they're in their 80s and 90s now, that have a lifetime of trauma that hasn't been dealt with, and they haven't been able to process the death of their baby because of the way it was then. So I guess because it happens so much, some things have improved in the way that we get time now with our babies,
Yeah.
but still it's never enough.
And people like they think they're doing the right thing. And like, what is the right thing? We're all just doing our incompetent best to bumble through a circumstance to try and,
Yeah, it's just,
oh
it
my
was a
God.
brutal experience. But I tell you what, um, I think the dads of stillborn babies are really forgotten about in this whole process. I learned very quickly with my husband and I that men and women grieve very differently.
Yeah.
Which can cause problems if you don't understand that very quickly. Like, just because a man is not crying every day about the death of their baby doesn't mean that they don't feel it. Whereas I'm not speaking for all women, but the way that I dealt with it was very outwardly,
Yeah.
just crying every day, like it, just different. But I think that the dads are left to deal with a lot in those first initial days. A lot of the decisions are made by the dad because the mum is just absolutely
Shattered.
incapable
Shattered.
of anything. Yeah, shattered, incapable of doing anything. So they make a lot of the decisions at the start at a time where neither of you should be making your decisions. And if you don't have support, the decisions that you make then, in like now, 2 years later, I'm going, I wish we took more photos. I wish we held him more. I wish I unwrapped him, and I wish I, looked at his little bum and had a look at his, just seen if there was any birthmarks. I wish that I saw what colour his eyes were. And, um, that is something that I have to sort of, live with for the rest of my life. But I really just love my husband because he's been my absolute um, rock through the whole thing, and he made decisions when Henry was born that he shouldn't have had to, at a time that neither of us should have been making big critical decisions.
Mm. Yeah. No. Decent chap too. In fact, I'd go as far to say that his only real fault is bad taste in women. That's what that's
Ting.
I'm here all week. No, but no, oh my God, yeah. And like you said, we do handle it differently. Yeah, I've kind of seen that. It's like, why are you doing this? It's like, because I'm a man. It's kind of like we just do things differently.
Yeah, oh man, he did the best that he could. Yeah, I was not even, I was not very helpful.
Oh no, God, like you said, completely shattered. Oh my God. And see what he would have been thinking too is like, okay, so he's going through the grief. But I can tell you this, he would have been thinking is like, oh my God, I got to support her. So the
Yeah,
focus would have gone,
and he did. And he still does. I didn't go to, I didn't leave the farm for close to 15 months. So that meant, he did all the shopping, he did all of the outside stuff. He made all of the phone calls, all our financial stuff. He sorted out everything because I just wasn't able to do anything. Everything that you could think of, he did. And that is just such, I such a big responsibility when you've already got two little kids that are here wondering what the hell is going on.
Mm.
And the way that it affected our eldest daughter was just the repercussions of that. My God, we just didn't realize that she was in fact ready to cope with some things that we thought that she couldn't. Yeah, it was a hard day when my daughter, who was halfway through prep, who was blowing up every day, and I picked her up from school and decided to drive her home, give her the day off. Um, it was a hard day when she said, Mum, you didn't even let me meet him. I knew my baby brother was coming. I knew something was going on with the adults, and you didn't let me meet him. None of the adults were telling me what was going on, and I'm really angry at you for that. At the time, in the state that we were in, we thought that the best decision was to try and protect our babies from that, because it's, society that is the way that we're brought up to, pretty much hide death, especially from other children. And it just, we can't change any decision that we made at the time, but there are times when I think, geez, I wish I'd done things differently.
Oh. There's not a life lived.
Yeah.
There's not a life, perhaps one exception, but that someone who didn't stuff things up and make mistakes like that. So no, God, don't go hard on yourself. But yeah, so I mean that's interesting. I've got to say, like this idea that we kind of like forgot the siblings. Well, can you kind of like, I mean, you want to go further into how it affected them and how it affected the family? Because like you have all these individuals, but also that you have the family unit as a collective entity. You know what I mean? See,
Yeah, well, pretty much the first year, it was just, and I feel a bit selfish about this now, but I honestly just lost my mind. Some of the things I was doing were really strange. So everyone in my family had to really focus on making sure that I wasn't on my own. and that I was looked after. And yeah, I put a lot of strain on my family. My daughter now, who's nearly 7, so we are expecting another baby in October. And my daughter is saying things to me like, Mum, if this baby dies, I need to meet her.
Okay.
She's 7. You know what I mean? People don't think like that when there's a baby coming. And you know, my little kids talk about Henry all the time and know that he's up at the moon. That's the way that it was explained to them. He is constantly spoken about between the two of them.
Mm.
You know, I'll come up and they won't know I'm there, and I can hear them talking about, why did Henry die? Where has he gone? Is he with Poppy, my dad?
Mm.
You know, little things like that. And they're so young. They are so young, and they have learnt so much in their little lives.
Mm.
Behavioural problems stemmed from that, you know, tumultuous time. It just happened at a time where my daughter was transitioning from kindy to prep,
Yeah.
biggest time of her life,
Yeah.
and whole life at home fell apart and changed in an instant. And so we've lots of therapy. We invested in that, and she's on track now. But you know, um, what she has experienced, and she's probably even got a little bit of PTSD herself, that has changed her forever.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've actually spoken to other guests about this, and like I'm not seeking validation. If you disagree, that's fine. But there's this concept of post-traumatic stress growth too, where it can give you, like we were talking about, the insight that it gave you before. So, I'm thinking that she's going to have a high degree of resilience and understanding and insight that other kids just aren't
Yeah,
going to have.
yeah.
So again, big price to pay. Wish we didn't, things could have been different. But like, having that is a gift, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's picked up some life skills that she doesn't even know she's picked up, but that will carry on, you know, with her for the rest of her life.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So look, how were you? Because you've talked about, you've talked about how tough it was and all that kind of stuff, and you were basically on suicide watch. Just pretty much that's the way I interpret what you said. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. How were you supported after after?
Um, After Henry was born, the main support that I received was from obviously my husband and then my mother and my in-laws. Um, in the support that we received in the hospital was not really good. We didn't have a support person with us. It was just my husband and I when Henry was born, because obviously we had 2 kids to be looked after. So his parents and my mum were looking after them. So we were in this hospital room with our baby that had passed away, expected to make all these big decisions, and nothing was ever clarified, re-clarified. And that is the one thing that I think was lacking when Henry was born. There was no support for us at the hospital. When I left the hospital, they did, however, give us a pamphlet. And back then it was called SANS, but now it's called Red Nose Grief and Loss. And on the pamphlet it said, you know, call this number for hospital to home counselling, where you can access free counselling online, over the phone, or in person from Red Nose, from a bereaved parent themselves. So yeah, and I think it's you can access that for, I think, 3 to 6 months after your baby dies. But it took me about 3 or 4 months to contact them, and I spoke to a very special lady that I'm still in contact with today, who had lost multiple babies herself, but she helped me in those times and put me in contact with, other organisations and other people within the baby loss community. So I found that very helpful. What I will say though is before Henry, I wasn't actually on social media. And I think maybe the reason why it took me so long to take the steps to contact anyone is because there is not a really good support system in place for people, for those who wish to lead a life off social media. It's a very hard to connect with organisations, resources if you are not online. So that
Yeah.
is how I ended up getting back onto social media. It was just a way of being able to be in contact with those organisations.
Mm. No, it's oh God, you're so right with that. Like, I know it's funny because Northern Vibe goes out through social media, but I am not a social media person. I actually, I'm kind of a bit concerned about it actually. And it's this tool that started off as something that helped us to connect and everything like that has ironically become something which disconnects people
Oh,
and
yeah.
limits because like no one, like
It's like a double-edged sword, right? It's
oh yeah,
it
it totally is. It's
helps and hinders.
yeah, like
But
it's
that is definitely what I found. When I wasn't on social media, there was no access to support groups,
yeah,
which is very, very dangerous for someone who's just lost their baby. You need support straight up. You need the support.
yep. Okay. So like onto that, so you were kind of mentored, if you don't mind
Mm.
mentoring, what advice would you give parents? And if you could break it down for both mothers and fathers,
Yep.
and look, even siblings, like if there's other people there, like you want to discuss the whole kind of ambit, like what would you say?
Geez, and I'm talking about initially, in the days after your baby's born,
Right.
still, there is no rush. There is no rush. Take everything day by day. If someone comes into your hospital, if a health professional comes into your hospital room and says, we need to talk about an autopsy, there is no rush to make a decision there and then. Take your time, have a support person to think things through, talk about it, and then make a decision because you have time. There is no rush. When you're I would even go as far to say when you're, seeing your midwife every single week and you're filling out forms, literally note down, this is our support person if anything happens. And that person will be, the person that is there to say, whoa up, you don't need to make that choice now. You have time. Remember, you can have photos taken. Remember that you have the cuddle cot. Remember that to take as much time as you need to make the memories that you will have forever. They're the last memories that you get. There is no rush. That is the biggest piece of advice that I have for anyone who, has to walk this path. Take the time after your baby has died and spend time with your baby and do everything. Look at your baby, play with their hands, take video, take photos, do whatever you want to do because once they're taken away from you, and that is rough, this is like the hardest thing that will happen aside from the initial blow of there is no heartbeat, there is nothing worse.
Mhm. Okay.
And one last thing, I think it's really important to sit with your grief. Really sit in it, really feel it. Don't run away from it. Grief, I have found, is just love with no place to go. Mm.
100%.
Yeah, it is love with no place to go. And if you don't invite her in to sit down for a couple with you, she will just hunt you down. So it's best to just, invite her in and sit with her because she's not a bad person. She is just love with nowhere to go. If you really love a person, you're going to grieve hard. The more you run from it, the more the situation gets worse. You can push it down for years. That's what I've learnt with Henry, because obviously, I lost dad in 2011 and just ran from that. And it did me no favors. Sit with your grief. It is as bad as it is. Feel all the feels and do not push it away.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because like you said, it's love.
Mm.
It's actually love. Like it's really funny how, because we've got this strange materialist way of viewing the world now, and it's kind of weird. Um, because we don't recognize what things actually really are. Like you said, grief is love. That's what it
Mm.
is by, by
Yeah.
by definition. And there's this other like, and it's kind of like linked with this. And I'm sorry, I'm just making these random links in my head. And oh no, I want to actually no, I'm not going to go there with that one. That's just too weird. But okay. So, what organization did you find most helpful?
Yeah, like I was saying before, so the two main organisations that I really found helpful was the Red Nose Grief and Loss,
Yep.
especially the hospital to home. Um, you know, counselling that you can have from home. I found that very, very helpful, and it helped me connect with others in the baby loss community. The other organisation is Precious Wings. So
Precious Wings.
Precious Wings is these are all non-profit organisations, by the way. They're not funded by the government. So Precious Wings, they create memory boxes and they fill it with special things for bereaved parents and give that to a bereaved parent before they leave the hospital. So while you think you're going to be walking out with a baby, you walk out with a box, and it is confronting at the time, but later on down the track, it took me probably about a year and a half to open that box. The things that are inside that box are very helpful with this whole process. Things like journals and candles and photo frames. The boxes are donated by bereaved parents. So the boxes are in memory of a baby that has been stillborn. So then you're given that opportunity to connect with other families that have been through, this same thing. So they are the two organisations that I've found really, really helpful. The
Ritual
stillbirth,
matters. Ritual matters because
yeah,
fundamentally, what that Wings organization you were just speaking about, what they're doing is facilitating ritual, which is something that we've lost in our society because we've
yeah, and it's acknowledging the baby. Just because you don't get to go home with your baby does not mean that they are not still an integral part of your life. Just because you don't bring a baby home doesn't mean that you haven't got someone to raise. I'm raising a soul. I'm raising a kind soul still. I have earth side babies and I have a baby
in heaven,
that
let's
is
say.
in heaven somewhere else. And I still have a very important role. I must teach Henry how to be a kind soul.
Mm,
Everything that we do here shows Henry how, well, this is what I believe. Everything that we do here shows Henry how important it is to, just be a good soul.
mm. No,
I'm still doing that. I still parent him from here.
yeah, no, amen to that. No, he's with his father in heaven. Well, I think I think that's awesome. Anyway, so you've just kind of like discussed how you stay connected with Henry, like you kind of like thinking about him and
Yep.
parenting for him. Like, are there other things that the rest of your family do to stay connected?
Yeah, we talk about, obviously we have kookaburras everywhere, all over our house in photos. We have Henry's photos in the house. The kookaburra is really significant to our family. When we got home from the hospital, this resident family of kookaburras started coming and they've never left. We see the kookaburra every single morning and afternoon, and we talk to him, and we just know that some way that is how Henry comes through to us. We toast to Henry every single time we have dinner. We include him in our conversations, and we celebrate him wherever we can. On his birthday, on his first birthday, we planted 12 jacaranda trees on the farm. We still did the birthday cake. We invited our family over and we sang happy birthday. And we did 1 week prior to his birthday, leading up to his birthday, acts of kindness. So we encouraged our family and our friends to do one act of kindness in memory of Henry, where they would normally, I don't know, give a gift or something like that if Henry was here. The gift to Henry is the acts of kindness. And we're talking about things like if you're standing in line waiting for a coffee and there's people behind you, pay for the person's coffee behind you, or
Something simple. Yeah.
yeah, just, acts of kindness. Go and pay for someone's parking ticket that
Yeah.
day. And we did things like that every single day leading up to, and so did all our friends and family. And that is how we celebrated Henry, because he is still, he might have been born still, but he is still a massive part of our family. We'll never forget him.
No, and that's important. That's very Jewish, actually. That's the Jews have a concept of mitzvah.
Oh, really?
Very, very Jewish. Oh, I mean, it's in Catholicism too, but we don't. It's something we don't focus on as much, especially post Second Vatican Council. But anyway, but yeah, so that's the Jewish concept of mitzvah, which I think is absolutely magnificent. But okay, so you've gone through, you have this, you do that ritual every year on his birthday. I'd imagine. Like, did you celebrate every birthday, or was it just that first one?
The first one. So we've got his second birthday coming up. We'll do something very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we find a feather, every rainbow, anything that is beautiful to us, we just believe that that's him. That butterfly that floats past, the clouds in the sky, that random rainbow that just pops up. To us, that is how we think Henry comes through to say hello to us.
Totally. So, all these kind of like things are coming together in a certain way, because there is an idea that, I suppose it's a very Western idea actually too. Well, actually a materialist idea, I'd go as far to say, an Enlightenment idea, that the best way of handling this grief and stuff like that is to deny it fundamentally, and to not bring up a dead person's name, not bring
That's
bring
right.
them up and stuff like that. Mate, I mean, is it okay? Like, is it okay for people to do that? Like
100%. You will never find a bereaved parent that will not want to hear their baby's name spoken. We want to hear their name spoken because that's all we've got. To hear Henry's name is just something that lifts me up in the day. If I order a coffee, I order it in Henry's name, and just hear the barista call out Henry is just, it does the world. You can never remind us that our baby's died. You can't. It is there. We know. That's something that we won't forget, but acknowledging them and saying their name is just the most kindest thing that you could do for a bereaved parent. It is not a bad thing at all. Because you always, even now, when I bump into people, and there's a lot of people out there that don't really know what happened with Henry, people will say, "Hey, Rena, how you going? How's Clancy and Banjo?" And no one ever asks about Henry. And I understand why, Maloney, because Henry,
he's dead.
he's not here. I understand that.
Yeah.
But, even just mentioning his name, like I thought of Henry today. What do you think Henry's doing? I think Henry would, be a good-looking little 2-year-old kid. Just something small. It doesn't have to be big, but to absolutely deny that they ever existed is way more hurtful than actually saying, "Hey, let's talk about Henry."
again, that's love. That's love shining through. That's what that is. That's another manifestation of love. It's strange, really, that the common theme that I'm getting from this discussion and interview is like we experience love. Like love can be experienced in so many different ways. Like we always associate it with the romantic love.
Mm.
And look, I wouldn't say that this is a downside of love because again, there's no such thing as a downside of love, but like it's strange how these really things that we just associate a manifestation in one way manifest in really, really different ways.
Yeah.
That love can manifest in this way.
I'm actually just reading about that now. I'm trying to redirect my way of thinking to be thinking more positive and all that sort of stuff, just to help me in my grief. And I was reading that last night. It's called The Power, and it focuses on exactly what you're saying, that love is the most powerful power in the world, and
Yeah.
really it just comes down to that.
C.S. Lewis discusses this too in his book Surprised by Joy. I don't know if you
Let
know.
me write that down.
Oh, you'd love it.
Surprise.
So what happened with
Surprise
C.S.
button.
Surprised by Joy. So what happened with C.S. Lewis was he was an Englishman, lived through the trenches in the First World War, lectured at I think it was Oxford, might have been Cambridge, one of the
Yeah.
Oxford colleges. Magnificent writer. Oh, he wrote The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe, Narnia.
Oh, yeah. Okay, got
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. A Christian apologist. Anyway, very late in life, he got married to this woman named Joy, and he never expected because he was genuinely traumatized by the war, like he really was. And he was traumatized by like a number of other things in his life. Never thought that he'd find love, basically. And so finds this woman, falls in absolute rubber glove with her. Like he's like, oh, thank you, God, kind of stuff. You've sent me this. Yeah, shortly afterwards she dies. So
Yeah.
it's like, what did you do this to? So I mean, it's him working through his grief. And her name was Joy. So it's surprised by that, and it's how, again, fundamentally, this a lot of different people take it a lot of different ways, but he kind of like discusses what we've been talking about now. It's like, no, like what this pain that you're feeling, this grief, this suffering, this everything else, it's love. It's just a different manifestation.
Yeah.
In fact, deeper than that, because he's a Christian. So it's like it's the love of God. That's what you're feeling. So it's like a really, really strange way of reconceptualizing
Yeah.
things. And you know what? I don't think that that's a crutch. Like, say as I discuss a lot of, I have a lot of discussions with materialists and atheists, and they're like, oh, this is just a crutch. It's like, no, it's not. This is the reality. There is no greater reality than love. There's nothing else.
I agree.
All this material manifestation we see. It's brought together in meaning and love.
I just wanted to mention our support for the Stillbirth Foundation.
Yes,
So the
please do.
Stillbirth Foundation is a non-profit organisation that researches ways to reduce preventable stillbirth. These people are working every single day to find a way to reduce the numbers. They're doing it off grants and people who fundraise for them. That's how they get their money. For something that is as common as stillbirth, as you know,
Yeah.
it's not really funded by the government, and they're doing it all off their own. They are so important to our country, and I don't understand why they don't receive more funding, but they should.
Yeah.
Um, you know, surrounding stillbirth, there needs to be better information. There needs to be better continuity of care. There needs to be better investigation of stillbirth when it happens. And all that research and investigation goes towards reducing the current rate of stillbirth.
Mm.
So as a country, we do a poor job of investigating stillbirth when it happens. And it just blows my mind that there's only, I think, don't quote me on the percent, but it's like 40% of all stillbirth babies in Australia have a post-mortem examination. What that means is that, you know, the people that are researching it, they don't learn the causes of stillbirth to be able to find out information to filter back into our clinical care for expectant mothers. So, you know, there's countries like the Netherlands that have reported a 60% reduction in the rate of stillbirth after bringing this initiative in where they examine all stillborn babies. And from their research, they have found ways to reduce it. 60%, Maloney.
That's huge.
And, you know, but the Stillbirth Foundation just this year had reported for the first time in 30 years, they had noticed a slight reduction. And it's all come from those guys. Their tireless work that they do investigating and researching stillbirth. So yeah, that's what I want to say about that.
No, kudos to them. And it's really, because we don't know all that much about it. Like when I was in Juvenile Aid Bureau, which is now CPIU, you know, we did all child deaths, and God, you know, I stood next to so many cots now that I think about it. And of course, a lot of the deaths were just put down to sudden infant death syndrome. And you're a cop, you know what that means. We don't know. What sudden infant death syndrome means is we don't know. Kids just die sometimes.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's what that means. Like, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. Like, it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes their little brains just shut down.
That's exactly right. And stillbirth,
Same thing.
Yes, you know, we talk about the preventable stillbirth, but there are some babies that are healthy, have a healthy pregnancy, mum is healthy, baby is healthy, and they get to the finish line and then their heart stops beating. There are families out there that are dealing with that. You know, those babies who are tested after they're born and they find out that there is nothing that should have in any way suggested that this was going to happen. There are families out there that are experiencing that too.
Oh my God. And because again, the human mind wants to know why, because we want to make sense of things. We're sense-making creatures. That's what we do.
Yep.
So it's that concept of senselessness that just leaves people aching so much. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, why? How? You know? But no, you're totally right. Okay, well that's
Give me 2 seconds, Maloney. I'm just going to get a photo of Henry. I forgot. Sorry.
No, please do.
This is our baby Henry. Henry Ernest James White. I love him and I miss him. Thank you for letting me talk about my son today and for helping us talk about stillbirth and something that happens every single day in our country. And just thank you for giving me the platform to talk about my son.
No worries, mate. Yeah.
I
think on that one, I'll just stop the recording. Just stay online.